I grew up in Delhi and I moved to United States at the age of 22, many, many moons ago. In 2004, my husband and I, we started an online tutoring company. It's called StudentNest. At the same time, we were raising our children. Our motto was, and still is, nesting success. It just came from a very simple place to meet the needs of our own children. We have grown over the years, last 2 decades. And today we've had the opportunity to work with hundreds of thousands of students and thousands of schools across 25 states in United States. This journey has given me a close look at how different systems operate. But something shifted in me in summer of 2006 when I came to India and visited the schools and hospitals run by Jagadguru Kripalu Parishad. Not by scale, but by their sincerity. I was deeply moved what I saw in the classrooms. And I invite all of you to join me in that same spirit as we spend the rest of the day today and tomorrow, just narrowing that distance for our students. When we compare education systems, often global institutions come into play, and we automatically think about Stanford, Harvard, big name schools of United States. But that comparison is not fair because we're not looking at the same starting point. Zyadatar, we don't know about rural education in the US. What has struck me the most in past many years, when I look at US rural education and rural education in India, the similarities are same. They're striking. Both places, students live with competing responsibilities. In both places, parents are doing their best under real economic pressure. And in both places, education becomes a long-term hope, competing with immediate necessity. And that changes how we think. Because rural challenges are not about geography. They are about structure. They are about systems. And once we understand that, then the conversation shifts from blame to responsibility. I have had the opportunity to observe education across different contexts, including insights from the US Department of Education. And I want to say something very clearly. We often assume that if resources are strong, outcomes will follow. But that's not always true. In the US, billions of dollars are invested into education. And yet, attendance is a challenge. Can you believe that attendance is a challenge? In some regions, nearly 1 in 4 students is chronically absent. Not because they do not value education, but because their lives are unstable. Many students are growing up in broken homes. Some have no consistent adult supervision. Some are responsible for siblings. Some are simply trying to get through the day. So when they miss school, it's not always a choice. It's a consequence. And I want to acknowledge something honestly. Many of us who live abroad, especially Indians in the United States, often do not see this side of the system because we come from families that deeply value education. We stay within communities that prioritize it. And we often remain in environments where students are doing well. I include myself in that. For many years, I was not aware of that. It was only when my company began working closely with programs supporting underperforming and underserved communities including those shaped by government policies like No Child Left Behind. That's when I started to see the full picture. And that reality is actually shocking. In the US, about 1 in 5 students attend a rural school. Did you know that? 1 in 5 students are in rural areas in the United States. And many of these communities, poverty rates are really high, significantly high. In some districts, 25% absenteeism is very common. If we look at California alone, over 1.5 million students have been identified as chronically absent. With limited access to transportation, healthcare, and academic support, rural regions often face the highest rates. So this is not a question of funding alone. Funding exists, programs exist, policies exist, but here's the truth. Funding cannot fix this. Policies do not fix this. Intentions alone also do not fix this. If systems are not aligned with the realities of students' lives, even the best designed programs will fall short. And suddenly the comparison becomes real. Because whether we're looking at rural America or we're looking at rural India, the struggle is not about willingness, it is about structure. Talent is universal, but opportunity is not. In rural homes, education is not prioritized. It is respected, but respect alone does not lead to participation. I've spoken to many mothers here locally, and I asked them about their daughters going to school, and they tell me that their daughters could not continue school, not because they don't want to study, because somebody has to stay home to take care of grandparents. Somebody has to stay home to take care of their household chores. In that moment, that daughter was not being denied education. She was being assigned responsibility. Two very different things. I want to say that again. The daughter was not being denied education. She was given responsibility. These are not uninformed choices. They're impossible choices. And as educators, if we don't understand that, we risk misunderstanding the very students and communities we're trying to serve. Irregular attendance is not always a discipline issue. It often reflects an irregular life. And if we ignore that, we do not just lose students, we lose their trust. So the questions become, how do we respond? Families do not make decisions based on ideology. They make decisions based on risk. Sending a child to college does not feel like an opportunity. It feels like a gamble for the family. And if we want to change that, we cannot rely on persuasion alone. We need visible proof. We need to start identifying talent differently, not just by test scores, but by resilience, by responsibility, by the student who's managing a household and still showing up to school to learn. Once we identify that student, our job is to reduce the risk for that family. Because when one student succeeds visibly, something powerful happens. Word travels, trust builds. And today, we're not speaking about this in theory. We have alumni here sitting amongst us, right? Do we have alumni? Can we give a round of applause for all of our alumni? You once walked these same paths and are now teachers, journalists, successful professionals, standing on your own feet, supporting your families and doing well. They are not just success stories, they are signals. Signals to every family that this path works. Signal to every student that it is possible. This moment belongs to you, our alumni. And this kind of visible proof will do more than any policy can ever. To the faculty and educators today, you are often the first point of structured opportunity a family encounters. You have profound responsibility. Your role is not just to teach, it is to provide patience and presence. And let me be clear, flexibility is not lowering standards, it's aligning with reality. We must design systems that allow for pauses without permanent exits, because progress is not linear, and our system must be strong enough to support that. Change does not happen all at once. Distance does not disappear at once overnight. It narrows. It narrows when one educator refuses to give up on a student who is progressing slowly. It narrows when one girl goes to college and comes back home different. She thinks differently. As our friend Helder mentioned this morning, and also Tangee, when you teach a girl, when you teach a woman, it changes the world. She thinks differently, she lives differently, and over time, she parents differently. And slowly, expectations begin to shift. This is how transformation happens. Not all at once, but one student, one family, one institution at a time. So as we sit here today, I want to leave you with this thought. Geography should not define anyone's destiny, but changing that is not automatic. It requires patience, it requires persistence, and above all, it requires responsibility. Because we do not need to create talent, it is already there. Our job is to recognize it and support it and remove the barriers standing in the way. And if we do that well, we do not just educate individuals, we reshape their future. Thank you.
I would like to thank our previous speaker, Ms. Monika Joshi, for sharing her unique experiences and deep insights. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Helder Pinheiro, Manager, Fresno Unified School District, to give his talk. You want a pointer?
Yeah, so I could just use up and down arrow, right?
But do you want a pointer?
Do I want a what?
Pointer, this laser pointer.
Yeah, sure, let's try it. Try to test it, see if it works.
And you want it?
Thank you. That's good. Let's see if this pointer works. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I can't tell you the enthusiasm and excitement I have when I see you here. And I just want to talk about a few ideas that brought us here today. Yeah. There it is. Sorry about that. Okay, thank you. I'm getting some high-tech support right now, so I apologize. Pathways, possibilities, and empowerment. That's what this is all about. Kunda has done an exceptional job providing resources to young women that can change the lives of the community that surrounds them, as well as their country. I think about India a lot. India is the world's largest human capital currently in the world, making it #1. So when we talk about rural education and advancing higher education, it's critical that we recognize this resource, and it's throughout India. Kunda is just a special place at a special time for us. But I believe one of the professors mentioned that India is 2/3 rural, which is shocking. I learned that today, which means there's a lot of kundas out there. A lot of kundas with a lot of talented young women who look forward to this opportunity that you've been able to achieve. I think about the staff and faculty I met in the last couple of days and the commitment and passion they have. So I want to focus around the possibilities and the empowerment of these young minds. Most people carry quiet hopes about who they want to become and what kind of life they want to build. And that's an area around possibilities and empowerment. And because of the current situation in India and the blessing that you have as a human resource and a capital and the great minds that are being cultivated here and everywhere else through India, it's an opportunity that now people can feel close and sometimes feel distant at the same time. Where someone begins geographically, family income, access to resource does not determine how far they can go. Education remains one of the most powerful tools for building agency, confidence, and opportunity. And the operative word there is opportunity. This work is not about leaving communities behind. It's about strengthening them by equipping people with skills, voice, and pathways to contribute meaningful. It's about the idea of empowering people, specifically women in this community, giving them options and opportunities to make decisions and change their choices and decisions throughout their lifetime or process of their current status of educational level they're attaining. Think about a moment when one small opportunity changed your direction, a teacher who noticed your effort, a chance to try something new, a conversation that helped you see a different path. And that's huge. As we talk about our faculty and our staff, as long as our students know their availability and their commitment to your basic outcome is your successful achievement in your area of expertise, wherever that might be. And it's okay for it to change. It's okay to have an electrical engineering focus and then find out that it's, construction management. In America, that is very commonplace. But I don't feel that sense around the world when I travel. My wife and I have been blessed. We've traveled over 30 countries in the world. And oftentimes when we travel, we find that most higher levels of education, students pick one focus area of a degree and they feel almost constricted to it. In America, that doesn't happen. Because India has a wealth of these young, talented people, I think that empowerment aspect to the young ladies in this institution, in this community, is as you go through the process of becoming educated at higher levels, that you recognize that the opportunity to change throughout your pathway. If you find a passion for another field or another expertise, it's okay to change. Our shared responsibility is to make those doors visible, reachable, and welcoming. Education opens doors to opportunities. We all agree on this. But the trick is to understand that we have lots of choices once we enter the educational arena. At the university level, you're given a platform, very technical, to follow out A through Z. In America, we call it A through G. However, very often we find students that feel stuck in a certain area of expertise that they initially committed to for whatever reason. It could be economics, finances, etc. But I think of careers. In America, we think of males as certified public accountants or construction management. But these fields of expertise are now available to anyone and everyone who chooses that's their passion. And when we talk about that, those are opening doors to opportunity that we have to understand as adults that are available to us through the transition of our higher education. Families benefit even when students change their minds. Communities grow stronger. Once an individual finds a passion for a particular career, it's more sustainable over a long-term period of time, which benefits the community and the country. People begin to see what they are capable of becoming and take challenges once they are advised on these new changes. Discovering your strengths and potential. This is critical. Again, the self-reflection that we encourage our students in America, and I see this throughout the administration here in Kunda and all of the schools I've attended with my wife this past few days. I see the openness of the staff willing to listen and talk to address absenteeism or struggling students. Finding a strength often appears in everyday moments. Empathy in listening, organizing and planning, persistence in trying again. And I say again and again and again. Failure is okay. Creativity in finding new approaches, learning environments, surface these strengths through feedback, practice, and reflection. Many people underestimate themselves because their talents are not always recognized early. Growth accelerates when individuals receive specific feedback and opportunities to apply skills in real contexts. Projects, presentations, teamwork, and service in a community goes a long way towards success. Over time, confidence grows into competence. When diverse talents are recognized and nurtured, people begin to see what they are capable of becoming and take on challenges that they once avoided. Your village does not limit your future. We talk about rural communities, and I cannot emphasize how impressed I am with this community, with the infrastructure, the technology, when I walk the classrooms. So Kunda is a rural community. However, I'm impressed by the commitments of this community and the advances they've made to make sure that all resources are available to all students at all the time. Exploring careers, dreams beyond traditional roles. Girls become teachers typically in America and nurses. Now, engineers and entrepreneurs is a field that women have entered in the groves in the United States. And I'm sure it's happening here. As women cannot be forgotten when all the work that's necessary in our fields of sciences and technology and engineering are required, and of course, mathematics. Our community partnerships reduces uncertainty and builds motivation, connecting learning to real outcomes. Seeing multiple routes, it makes me laugh because I saw the infrastructure, a bridge being built on the way over to Kunda. It's amazing. Seeing multiple routes to success matters. Linear paths, not linear paths, and paths that evolve over time. When people understand that careers are built through exploration and interaction, fear of choosing the wrong option decreases curiosity and increases success. Opportunity around higher education. These things expand life choices, increases independence, and of course, what drives most people around the globe is increases income. We're very committed. Most civilizations are committed to have a hiring earning power throughout their career. But again, the empowerment and opportunities. We in the United States focused for many, many decades around income-based careers. And what we found was that employees would not stay happy or stay in those positions as long as we would like them to have. And it's okay to change. But given this opportunity, especially you young adult women in this profession, to review all the possible options, because India has many, many options now, is an opportunity to kind of have that mindset around your faculty and your support systems in place to review the possibilities that you may want to consider. This also develops a stronger voice. It cannot be underemphasized that women have strong voices when they want to stand up and be heard and committed to what their beliefs are. It's imperative at this time, during your progress to this educational enlightenment, that you learn that your voice matters. Your thoughts, the things you think of and want change for, needs to be heard, needs to be stated. It gives everyone a chance to also speak up. It's always hard for that first person to be courageous and take on that challenge. I think of times when I was a teacher and a student would question me, and I would invite that because it allows for other students to question me. And that's part of the learning process, to create that independent thought process for young adults, to allow them to think outside of the box and also challenge what they're hearing, seeing, or thinking. And then that allows everybody else in that room to have that same shared privilege. And it's an amazing accomplishment when students can say and think what they're feeling. That's what I've noticed when I walked the campuses yesterday. I could see the compassion by the staff and students and the teachers, that the bi-directional respect going amongst everyone at the facility, at the school, was respected. Higher education around breaking barriers, open leadership opportunities, overcoming financial challenges with scholarships, challenge beliefs that limit girls. Families can support girls' education. Even in America, we have a culture, a Hispanic culture, that very often suppresses or diminishes education for women, opportunities for women. I can think back 15 years ago when I was teaching algebra, and a girl came crying to me, and she said, "Hey, Mr. Pinheiro, you talk about opportunities for women to go on to college, to live their dream, to become educated." And I said, "Of course." I had 5 sisters, a mother, got married with my wife, and had a daughter. I've been surrounded by women all my life, like 90% of my life. And so I said, "Of course." She goes, "My parents are upset of the thought of me attending college." And this is like 10 years ago. This is like 2015, 16. And I think about that. I think about that very often. Today's opportunity to speak to you about women empowerment and options and choices gave me that opportunity to retell that story and experience I had. And I told her, you go to college, you succeed, you fulfill your dreams, and I promise you, invite me to your graduation, and I will be your surrogate parent at that ceremony. And she did. It was a wonderful thing, an experience I'll never forget. Unfortunately, her parents were very disappointed in her. She went on to become a teacher, a leader, and now is a school administrator. I realize resources are limited, but often when I think of that, I think of like coal or ore or magnesium or agriculture, depending on the over-harvesting of land. But creativity is unlimited. And that's kind of the focus that's special about this geographical area, this community, these schools, these young women. Their minds are so untapped with so much creativity and entrepreneurship, commitment to be what they want to be, do what they want to do, and be heard. And that is just empowering feeling that when I got here and I saw and felt, walking the hospitals, walking the schools, meeting the staff, the presidents, the principals, everyone, everywhere. I've always felt at all of this tour in the last 48 hours, I felt the compassion and commitment by everyone involved. The young adults who came up to my wife and I and spoke to us in perfect English, better English than most Americans speak where I'm from. Your English is outstanding. It's a commitment to the curriculum you use, the compassion by your staff, and of course the families of this community, the students and family who support their goal-oriented accomplishments. I noticed the teacher-peer and collaboration throughout the classrooms, and I spent a lot of, I don't want to over-embellish. I spent about 30 to 45 minutes of reviewing curriculum that is available to students here. Very impressive with the technology, and very impressed with the commitment of the staff. Education matters. This is kind of that theme about higher education, the whole conference, we cannot emphasize, not only does it matter for you to ascertain and finish your college degrees and commit to your dreams and wishes of your choosing, but that role modeling that's going to occur at the house with your younger siblings or your husbands, etc. Maybe it'll inspire them to go back and get a trade, skill, or a degree. It matters. And it can't be measured. Very often in the United States, we measure students who graduate and then ascertain jobs 6 to 12 months after their ascertainment of a degree. I don't think that's a reflective, accurate measurement of success in education, because an educated person has so many benefits that they pass along through generations to other people, their family members, their close relatives and neighbors, that cannot be accounted for socioeconomically. We can't track and trace that information. We talked about how education builds confidence, but more importantly, the commitment to stay focused for personal goals. That carries over to when you have children, how you raise them, what your expectations are for them, how they see you role model counts. It sets a tone. Bottom line, education increases opportunities. When girls are educated, communities rise. This was kind of a theme I heard in multiple speeches this morning. Educated girls uplift families. We've kind of focused about that. Women carry different set of tools in their tool bag than men. They're more compassionate, they bring more caring, they raise our children. So when you have an educated woman in your family, what they give to every other person in that household is just unbelievable an accomplishment. My sisters, I have 5 sisters I mentioned, they're all older than me, they all thought they were my mothers. My 5 sisters all emphasized to me college education. I was a typical male living in a rural community, and I said, I'm not going to college. I'm just going to go get a job, make money, get married, have children. What I would consider pretty typical male in America. My sisters would not allow me to do that. They said, you have to go to college. We don't care what you do in college. In America, it's like that. The first 2 years, you're kind of allowed to self-discover yourself, which could be detrimental in different ways. I went, I attended for 2 years, and I realized that this was the path for me. That not only for women, because this conference is around empowering women through college education, but even for men. In America, men now have the greatest dropout in college. Women in America, like India, I see these young ladies around me, are increasing numbers in graduation rates, degrees, and certificates, which I believe the world's realized that when we educate women to their fullest potential, we all become a better place on the planet. We've kind of hit all these points, but yeah, I like the last one. Communities benefit from women leaders. I don't know the demographics and the policies in India. I don't know if women are a large percentage of the political scene in their leadership roles, but in America, that transition has been occurring for the last 30, 40 years. And I'm not biased, but I do believe women make better decisions than men. Typical women leaders are typically found in these careers: teachers, nurses, and entrepreneurs. The constant breaking of barriers, the cost, distance, safety expectations are real. Progress happens when belief is paired with practical support such as financial aid, transport solutions, safe housing, and partnerships. Possibility, disproportionate obstacles can cause difficulty for many students. A clear checklist, a trusted contact person, and let me emphasize that again, a trusted contact person. And that's different for all different peoples of all different nations and all different cultures and all different religions. For me, I could easily go to my priest in my country if I was having difficulty to find a support system. We also have counselors at the college level and at the high school level. But it's imperative as young women, as you transition from one period to another, that they're always not consistently smooth. There's going to be some bumps and hiccups through the process. Having that trusted person that can validate your concerns, your fears, your accomplishments or lack of accomplishments can redirect you in a path that allows you to be successful and ultimately meet the goal of your anticipated outcome. Confidence grows and momentum continues to follow. Setting short-term and long-term goals, writing goals down. If you don't have this habit, please try to start as early as you can. I had a professor who mentioned to our class that journalizing, writing goals down, journalizing to yourself, journaling daily or weekly, whatever fits your schedule, whatever your particular pattern of success or comfortability is, you should always write down what you're thinking and feeling so that you can self-reflect a week, a month, maybe a year, to go back and see what you're thinking, feeling, and anticipating of your personal goals, academically, personally, financially. I cannot emphasize, when you take paper and pencil or pen, you utilize a writing utensil to document your thoughts and feelings that will reinforce your commitment to your goals. And this goes around the weekly progress tracking. Track, retrack. Don't be afraid. When I was journalizing when I was a young college student, I would often journalize for 2 or 3 weeks in a row and go back and review and read what I had written. And then I would read sometimes that I was like, I really thought that and wrote that? It's okay to scribble it out, white it out, block it out, whatever method you have. It's okay to change, make decisions on the go. Taking those moments and opportunities to address, reflect, and just being honest, having the bravery and courage to question your thoughts and intentions and redirect those efforts to another place, passionate commitment, whatever that may be. And I'm hoping as I speak that you hear my theme. Because you guys are the world's largest, youngest human capital base of the world, you guys are now in a stage where you can make those choices, change your minds, track your feelings and emotions, and commit to those things so that they go long-term, sustainable periods of time. Very often in my country, well, I'll be very honest with you, most of my brothers and sisters told all their children to become mechanical, electrical, or civil engineers. I said, you have to become a lawyer or an engineer in some field. And I was a high school counselor my first 5 years of education before I was a teacher. And I would say, man, that sounds good because it provides the most financial, economic opportunity. And we are driven as human beings around finance. And trust me, I was driven very, very hard. My wife's parents as well drove her this direction. It was to get in a position to make the most money as soon as possible. But when we had a daughter 25 years ago, our energy and efforts were redirected. I had a counseling master's degree. She was working on her doctorate. And we soon found out by reflecting upon our own lives that we were kind of guided or nudged, maybe even pushed into these careers. And no one ever asked us if that's what we wanted to do. And it's interesting when you're not given a choice and people choose for you, you eventually learn that this is acceptable. And I always think about when I was a child, what I'd had for dinner. My parents dictated every night what I was going to eat, and I was going to eat that. And there was no question around that. It was only when I became an adult that I get to choose what I want to eat. And that's the same concept around education. We can formalize it. We can make it available to you. We can provide resources. We can guide you in the career paths, but ultimately, each individual has to look within themselves and decide, is this something I want to do for 50 years? It's a long time. You guys are young adults, but I've been doing it my career for 35 years, and it's coming to an end here soon. And I'm curious, as I retire with my wife, what will my new interests be? Will it be academia, or will I go into a laborious-oriented field where I get to use my hands again? Because I am from an agricultural background. My first job was a field worker, and I learned so much. I mean, those lessons, your young children, the commitment that they've made in this agricultural setting is unprecedented experience. Now, the truth of the matter is, that's a great place to start so that you learn that there's other opportunities in education that will allow you possibilities that you can dream and have. So it's fine to start there, and it's fine to end there if that's your choice, your passion. Because my mother loved agriculture. She had 2 acres of garden, and she just loved it. It just made her feel safe and comfortable and successful. And so there's nothing wrong with that. But you being here in this academic setting with all the supports around you, you have an opportunity that's unprecedented in your time and history that allows you to choose. And having choices for anyone, anywhere on the planet, is an exceptional concept. And I'm so proud to be here and to see all of these opportunities for you. Oh, pathways after higher education, the local job opportunities, the apprenticeships come with all these fields. I'm not familiar enough to know the dynamics around this state. You guys call it a state, UP, I think, right? Yes, UP. I don't know. Very often I would study cultures and countries before visiting them. Unfortunately, my wife and I were in Southeast Asia for a month before we got here, so I didn't have enough time to commit. But when I get home, I'm going to read all about India. I know the minds that are in India. The world speaks of all the intellectual potential in India. That's kind of the hysteria in America. I mean, I believe they're starting to bring lots of companies here, right? I'm not sure, but I heard they are. And so there's going to be more and more opportunities for you soon. Networking and mentoring. We touched on this. In America, when we say networking, they have an expression, and it might not carry over for you, but in America, they say your net worth is your networking, which is a very interesting concept. In America, they've now moved for career pathways and opportunities, and they are now ranking your association with high academia achievement, colleagues around the university level. The connection of these individuals provide even more opportunities as you engage with relationships. So this little expression, your net worth is your networking, when I heard it the first time 10 years ago, it seemed very awkward to me. It seemed biased, to be honest with you. I thought, you mean because my family didn't have any individuals that were, prestigious in political positions, that maybe my net worth is less substantial than someone who has that? And they said, no, you're misinterpreting the concept. What they're intending to suggest is the more you network, the more involved you are in a community, a religion, a commitment, churches, activities, the more you see people, meet people, these practices and experiences develop these interpersonal skills, these social commitments that allow you to be seen, heard, and build the character of the people around you. And I said, well, that makes sense. So your network is really your network. The future starts today. Your future matters. Your higher education is a powerful tool. Your success strengthens our entire community. Thank you. Oh,
Yeah, I would like to thank Mr. Helder Pinheiro for his nice talk. And now, please join me in welcoming Dr. Tangee Pinheiro, Adjunct Faculty, California State University, for her address.
Yeah, that's it.
No, let's do this because
Excellent. Thank you.
and now do you want a pointer or if you don't want a pointer?
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful lunch, and thank you, Mr. Pinheiro, for sharing that enlightening presentation for us. I'm going to take off kind of where he left off. If you have not put together, Mr. Pinheiro and Dr. Pinheiro go together. We are married. And so he shared some personal information, and I will continue to do that for you as well, just so you get a context of, several of the speakers this morning talked about the impact that higher education has on lives and the trajectory that it has on communities. And we are a perfect example. His family, his parents and my parents, neither one went to college. He and we got together and got married, and we worked through college together as a team. We felt that that was important. We felt that it was something that was going to make our lives better and any children that we brought into this world. So lo and behold, he shared with you that we have a 26-year-old daughter, and when it was time for her to graduate from high school, she was very adamant to tell her father that he had a master's degree, I had a doctorate. There was no way that she was going to settle for anything less. So she graduates with her doctorate degree in about 2 months. So really thank you. Thank you. So our commitment to getting an education and accelerating in higher education has changed the trajectory of many generations in our family probably to come. Certainly her children will probably feel the same and want to make sure that their children are well educated as well. So as we're talking through my presentation today, I want to challenge you on something. I have been either a teacher or an administrator for 30 years. Mr. Pinheiro shared that I am exiting my career. I am retiring here in about 3 or 4 months, and then I plan on spending some time, much like he said, in figuring out what my next steps are. Life is a journey, we all know that, and after 30 years of working, I think that there's probably something else in my future, so we'll see what that brings. In the meantime, as I'm talking, I'm going to challenge all of you. In the 30 years in education, I have experienced probably over 50 conferences, and every conference that I go to, I learned along the way that I would try to pick one thing, try to pick one challenge or one thing that I learned at the conference and walk away with some action steps. Because otherwise you end up going through conferences and you learn things, it's great. However, nothing changes. So whether you are an educator, whether you're a student right now, whether you're a parent or an alumni, I challenge you to find something in the conference that we're experiencing right now and walk away with an action plan. Walk away with something that you want to make happen for yourself or for somebody else. If you are an alumni, that may be mentoring. Mr. Pinheiro mentioned mentoring. I'm going to mention that again during my presentation. But I encourage you to be thinking about what action plan you can step away from either today or tomorrow and what a difference it can make in somebody's life. Okay, as I shared, several of you have already heard the themes that many of us have talked about, is that education matters. It creates multi-generational impact, and global insights and local wisdom equals sustainable change. Not only I shared our story with my daughter, however, it also encourages change across communities, families. It is really transitional. It makes a difference in the world that we're in. So, what are those things? As we finish our education, We think we know what we're going to do. We're pretty sure that we're interested in something. However, like Mr. Pinheiro said, we change our minds, don't we? I had every intention of being a business degree. I expected that I would go through a business pathway and probably a CPA, a certified public accountant. However, life circumstances change, and I ended up in education, and I know now that there was a reason for that. I was intended to be an educator, and it's been very good for me. It's been very good for our family, and I'm very grateful for that path. However, that was not the path I started. Now, there were things that happened in my life, though, that I knew that's not what I want, and that is absolutely as important as knowing what you do want. So prior to becoming an educator, I was a dance teacher, and I looked at the people that were doing that job, and I didn't like the lifestyle. They taught late into the night, weekends. They were not, when I patterned after them, that wasn't what I wanted for myself, so I chose to make a change. So one of the things I'm going to challenge young ladies in the room, one of the things I'm going to challenge you to do is be thinking about somebody in your life or somebody that you know of that has a job or has a career that you think, hey, that's a great life, and that would be something that I would be interested in, and reach out to them and talk to them about that. You may find out that that's not what you want, but it's more important to rule it out or to rule it in and know whether that's something that you want. So what works best? There are certainly some global best practices. Our conference today is all about global insight, and there are certain things across every country, across every continent that will make a difference for all of us in our lives. And they're called global best practices, and the reason is really we're humans. We have more in common than we have differences, and we know that we can make a difference for the people around us. So a few of the things that are absolutely best practices is inclusion, making sure that learning is accessible. And by accessible, I mean many of the barriers that maybe you all had in a rural community, transportation, cost, all of those things, you had people that helped you overcome those, and that's why you're here today. Reach out and try to do the same for others. Make sure that that inclusive opportunity for other people is an opportunity you can support as well. Also in inclusion is making sure that the method of learning is applicable to the learning style that you have, or to the learning style that maybe your students have if you become a teacher down the line. And by being a teacher, I'm sure you all know that there are many types of teachers. Any industry, there's going to be teachers. Whether you're a doctor, you're going to teach residents. Whether you're a lawyer, you may become a judge and you're teaching other lawyers. So there are many different types of teachers, even within other industries. So if you become a teacher of any industry, know that people have different learning styles. An example, my husband has amazing auditory learning style. He can listen to something and he will learn everything. I have to see it. I'm a visual learner. And so when you're teaching other people, make sure that you're using inclusive opportunities, and we'll talk about universal design for learning, to where people can access the learning based on their strengths. Another way of, or another best practice would be leadership pathways and mentorship for girls. Several of us have mentioned mentorship. And it is so important that you find a mentor. And it may be a mother or a father, it may be a brother or sister, it may be a teacher, it could be anybody in your world. But by having somebody that can guide you and support you, it's going to strengthen you. So when my husband and I got married, we were supporting each other as kind of mentoring each other. We were making sure that we were supporting each other through school and whatever that took. So, if he was sick, I would help him out with his class, or vice versa. So just whatever it took, there were things that we were supporting each other. And if you don't have somebody in your circle like that, find somebody, find a mentor that can tell you, hey, this is what I did, and this is how it worked, and this is what you might want to think about. and you will be surprised at what a difference that can make. Roadmaps and commitments. Mr. Pinheiro shared that you want to make sure that you have some goals written down or some journaling that guides your decision making. Young ladies, I know a lot of young ladies now do goal boards to where you have pictures of things that you want in your life, and that is a great way to visualize what you would like in your life. Professional athletes, they have models that they watch, and they watch tapes over and over again so that they can model exactly what that person is doing so they get better. And that's the same thing for you, is you want to find somebody who is doing what you want to do well and pattern after them. And you never know, sometimes you get better than them too, and that's great. So we do know that there are shared challenges, and we've shared already that we are from a rural area, and many of these challenges are the same. We are from it's the big little city, I guess you would say. We do have a university, California State University, which I teach for. And one of the things that has been great is it offers opportunity and access, because many of our little communities are fairly far out. So having something that you can get to in an hour or so is wonderful. So that eliminates a lot of the access issues. And then quality, making sure that whether it's faculty or teachers in your schools, making sure that there's a curriculum that is relevant and rich and proven, making sure that it is something that's going to support learning for all students. And then equity and belonging, first-generation learners and access to differently abled. So back to what I talked about earlier is visual learners versus auditory learners, is making sure that you're giving different opportunities of ways for a person to learn. And then access to opportunities for mentorship and career development. And this is something that you may already have in your community. However, if you don't, that might be something that you could reach out and foster. I think the best thing about this conference is that there's relationships being built today and tomorrow that maybe hadn't been before. University faculty was here, and I know that they had reached out and talked to several people. So I know that there are things that would be opportunities for mentorship and connection. So what does research show works? High expectations. I think ladies in the room, that is it's very evident in what you're experiencing right now, is there's very strong supports, but there is very high expectations for you. Just by walking and meeting some of you and meeting your teachers and your administrators, that is evident that expectations go a long way. If there's an expectation that you're going to succeed, you're more likely to succeed. So that is wonderful. Mentoring and advising systems have something that is not just a informal mentoring and advising system, but something that happens on a regular basis. I had a former superintendent that was my mentor for 4 years, and she would meet with me on a regular basis. Sometimes we wouldn't have anything to talk about, but sometimes we had big things to talk about. And she would always guide me and tell me, well, maybe try this. And she didn't always have the answer. She was a human too, and so she didn't always have the answer. But most of the time she would have something that she would say, oh, I had this circumstance, 20 years ago, and this is what I did, and this is how it worked. And so it was something that was valuable for me, and I encourage you to make sure you have a mentor too. Clear pathways to livelihoods. Again, trying to think through, is this a lifestyle I would like? Is this a lifestyle I would not like? And then having a path and a expectation past graduation. So access to education, you have that. What are you going to do with it once you're done? And there are a million different answers to that. However, what you want to do is you want to have a plan. Because if you don't have a plan, then there is no plan. It's not going to happen. And so you want to make sure that there's something that after you graduate, you know kind of what your next step is. You may change your mind, but at least you have a plan. Other things that help with making sure that you have access to different things is blended learning. So blended learning is an opportunity. Of course, with the internet, there's so much access now, and so you can use different types of activities that you can learn online, or you can have community-embedded projects, which are fantastic because many times that can lead to job opportunities, career opportunities, and then early alert and advising systems. So getting into the education system is fairly straightforward. However, what happens if you start to struggle? Many of my students that I teach right now at the university, they have struggles. And many of them are teaching full-time and going to school full-time. And so there's a lot of struggles. There's a lot of concerns that they want to make sure that they are doing a good job, and so they are very frustrated. So having something that triggers what happens if I have a student that I think might be struggling, whether it's academically or social-emotionally, whatever it is, I want to have the next step. And so I encourage those of you that are in education right now, be thinking about early alert systems that you can identify when a student or whoever is in your periphery, it may be your teachers if you're an administrator, but have something to where you can support them right away. And then access to high-quality faculty and learning designs. If you become a faculty member, just making sure that there are support systems and learning designs that are co-designed. So you want to make sure that you have a system to where you're working collaboratively, because when we put multiple heads together, we all think better. And the more people that are involved in that, I know you know this because I can tell in your classrooms that you're already doing this, but the important thing is that the more people involved in the planning, the richer the product. I'm going to talk a little bit about a multi-tiered system of support. That is something that we talk about in the United States, and this can be both academic and social-emotional. So when you're looking at the bottom green part of this triangle, it says Tier 1 Universal. If you design any type of learning activity to meet the majority of your students or the majority of the learners, most of them, 85% of them, maybe 75% of them, will learn from that general exposure. The targeted Tier 2 part, the yellow part, is the next level that they may take maybe some extra learning or maybe teaching in a different model, providing different opportunities to learn those types of things, or maybe even just listening to a different teacher. Sometimes you go online and you listen to the recordings for algebra, and they've taught it a different way than your teacher taught it, and it may be very helpful. So having all of those different targeted approaches. And then Tier 3, the red part, is the very tip of the iceberg, and we've already done those targeted supports, that didn't work, and so now we've got to have more intensive education, more intensive support for that student or that learner. And then universal design for learning is multiple ways of engaging, representing, and action and expression of what they've learned. So if I am teaching a class, and I think, oh gosh, this topic, they're not going to like this topic. It's going to be dull for them. I can think of something that might be more exciting for them to learn. If there's a movie maybe about what we're learning about, or maybe a YouTube video that will teach it in a different model or a different way. Those are different ways of engaging your students or learners, and certainly it can help with making sure everybody has access to that. Representation, you can make sure that you have different ways to support access and understanding, and making sure that there's opportunities across all different ways. So if listening isn't the way that they learn, then having a different way that they can represent that. Representation can also be, if I am the teacher, I may say, you're going to write a 5-paragraph paper. Well, there are people that say, gosh, writing paragraphs are not my strength. However, I understand the concept. I know what this topic is. There may be something else that they can do. They may be able to draw something or sing a song or whatever it is. There's different ways of representing what they know and learn. And then action and expression, offering options and supports to all, for everyone who can create, learn, and share. So going back to leadership pathways, many of you may be thinking about being a leader. And like I said, there are different types of teachers in every organization and every type of career. There are also leaders in every type of career. And by the way, you don't have to be a boss to be a leader. Many of the leaders that we see are accidental leaders. You may have a personality that is just built to be a leader, and that absolutely can be probably one of the most effective ways of leadership is with your peers. So early leadership opportunities on campus and community, student leadership councils, project-based community learning opportunities, academic leadership, maybe being a research assistant or a peer leader, career leadership, internships and apprenticeships, and then civic leadership service learning. So these are all ways that you can grow into leadership without getting yourself in a circumstance where you may not be as comfortable. So if you haven't tried one of those, I encourage you to do so. And then Mr. Pinheiro also mentioned earlier that you must have a trusted mentor. You must have, or not a mentor even, a trusted adult. So making sure that there is somebody that you can trust and somebody that you can turn to. So it may be a peer, it may be a faculty advisor, or it could be a professional mentor from the industry that you're in. So make sure that there is somebody that you can turn to, because life has a way of kicking us when we're down, so you just want to make sure that you have somebody you can turn to. And here we go, the Trusted Adult Network and Wellbeing and Counseling Pathways. So this is, of course, where I fit in, I think probably in the grand scheme of things, is a university-school partnership. I was the former instructional superintendent for Fresno Unified, which has 74,000 students. We had, and my area of expertise was special education. And so I also was a faculty member for California State University, Fresno. Well, it's the perfect marriage, because what happened is sometimes when you'd go through the university, you would not be fully prepared for the teaching that would occur. And so we actually built partnerships. And so faculty members would come out and teach in the classroom, live experiences, help teachers through that, and then vice versa. We may have actual teachers come and teach some of the classes, and that way there's that cross experience to where the faculty knows what the skills are necessary to do the job, and the teachers are teaching the future teachers, and so that they walk into the classroom prepared. They can also co-design clinical experiences. So many times we would actually have it to where the university professor and the administrator would get together and co-design the classes, and that way everything aligned. Nothing is worse than graduating from a university and then having your first job tell you, well, you didn't learn it right. And so by having that circumstance to where it's co-designed, it's nice and tight, and when you get out into the industry, you're ready to go. And then shared data improved preparations and outcomes. So technology, of course, is our friend and sometimes our enemy, but make sure that you're using technology to your advantage. Certainly, if you're researching different careers or researching mentors or whoever it is, you can use that technology as part of that purpose. So, of course, low-tech solutions are great. However, sometimes educational resources, many of them are free, and then faculty support for implementation. So if you're a teacher, then sometimes you will have a faculty support system that adds it together. So as we wrap up today, I want you to be thinking about the key takeaways from the presentation and be thinking about, what is that one thing? Remember, I challenged you at the beginning. Is there something that when I walk out of here today, is there something that I want to do? Is there an action that I need to take to be prepared for implementation of a plan? Or was there something that triggered in your head that said, oh, I do need to do this? So key takeaways: equity and quality drive impact. If we have good equity systems built into our education and quality curriculum and instruction, then that drives impact. You're going to have a better impact. And then leadership pathways and mentorship change trajectories. Again, making sure that you have those things in place so that you can, your trajectory is a much easier trajectory than trying to develop it on your own. And then partnerships multiply results. The hands of many make light work, right? And so you want to make sure that if it's a heavy job, then you have help and make sure that you're working through that together. And then to close, just knowing that local action and global learning are so closely related in a world where you can find out exactly what's happening halfway across the world, just knowing that what you're doing locally and what's happening globally can be combined to make sure that you're getting the very best opportunity for you or your daughter or whoever it is, your faculty member, whoever that is. Use the global resources and bring it back home, bring it back locally, and that way you're supporting your local community and making sure that you're giving the very best back to your home. I'll close with that. Thank you very much. It's been wonderful speaking with you.
So I'd like to thank Dr. Tangee Pinheiro for a nice keynote presentation. Now, let me invite our invited speaker, Dr. Tarun Sabarwal, Professor of Economics, University of Kansas, USA, for his presentation. Otherwise, it might be distracting. कोई red laser करके रह सकते. So, just switch on or you don't want to just set this.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you so much. I'll focus my time on graduate education, so bachelor's or mostly postgraduate education, master's and beyond, with a focus on rural settings, and try to identify some paths which may help move towards academic excellence. We know, and education in general is helpful. Graduate education plays a stronger role in transformation because at least the goal is to go beyond an accumulation of just more classes and more degrees. The goal is to produce more thoughtful experts who can advance knowledge, who can apply knowledge practically rather than just taking more classes. And that's the kind of education we have in mind when we are thinking about knowledge-based societal transformation. Such education has greater impact in areas where access to higher education can transform entire communities. So we are going to focus on rural settings, but same principles apply to marginalized urban neighborhoods, underdeveloped regions, economically decaying regions. Research is an integral part of graduate education. That's where we train students to think harder, think deeper, question assumptions, analyze complex problems, and develop solutions that can be tested and reproduced. This is the kind of education and training we have in mind that cultivates rigorous thinking and independent thinking. And that's what leads to innovation and impactful discoveries. Research is a well-established structural pillar of economic growth and societal development. We are thinking about education in rural settings. In these settings, rural higher education institutions are the primary provider of graduate education. They strengthen and uplift communities in areas with otherwise fewer opportunities, as several speakers have mentioned as well. Such institutions faced distinct structural challenges based on their location, but they also possess some unique strengths. So I'll try to talk about each of these a little more. There are academic industry partnership challenges in rural education. Urban universities benefit from access to research institutes, corporations, startups, innovation hubs, and so on. Rural institutions frequently lack such partnerships and collaborations, and that limits their translational and applied research opportunities. Rural institutions may also have fewer access to infrastructural resources. Research and graduate education depends heavily on access to well-equipped labs, comprehensive journal access, advanced software, extensive libraries, and so on. Rural institutions may have less access to these resources, and that leads faculty and students struggle to engage in high-quality competitive research. Furthermore, scholarship thrives on active intellectual engagement. You're actually pushing the boundaries of knowledge. It's not just easily available in a book in your local bookstore. So rural settings frequently experience fewer visiting scholars. They have limited seminar series, conferences. Faculty have heavier teaching loads, less research time, and there are fewer incentives to actually innovate, whether for scholarship or teaching. This further restricts exposure to cutting-edge debates and methodologies and throttles impactful research. Student scholarship challenges can be seen as well. So talented students, and indeed faculty as well, often will migrate to urban institutions, international universities, better funded research centers. Students in rural settings may be coming from under-resourced undergraduate programs. They may have less family understanding of what it means to be in higher education. They may be coming from schools who understand less what it means to be exposed to cutting-edge research. So common challenges include limited training in academic writing, lack of exposure to research methods, and lower confidence in engaging with scholarly discourse. And finally, we know that rural institutions may also face some social environment challenges. There may be early marriage expectations. There may be domestic responsibilities. We are hearing several speakers talk about that. Mobility transport restrictions, gender norms about who can access higher education, and institutionalized lower aspirations for students. Our students don't do higher education. Our students don't do research. So these pressures can shorten academic trajectories. They can interrupt academic trajectories, especially for women pursuing advanced degrees. So rural institutions face a variety of structural challenges, but they also have some unique strengths. So they have a deep community embeddedness. Fewer educational institutions understand their community as well as the rural higher education institutions do. They typically have a strong social mission, women's empowerment, equity, inclusion, so forth. They typically have a close-knit academic community. These are small schools, small colleges, fewer institutionalized silos. It's easy to talk for biology, to talk to economics, to talk to math, and so forth. And they do frequently provide individualized student mentorship, and we are seeing the benefits of that in our college here as well. So the question that I want to focus the rest of the address on is, how can these strengths be leveraged for academic excellence, both to overcome challenges and to lead in areas with unique strengths? So I'll outline 3 paths that are interdependent that will try to put some more structure on these ideas. So first, community embeddedness, community understanding is a huge advantage that rural institutions have. So use that as a comparative advantage. Urban universities, large research universities may not understand how the community works. So you can lead with locally relevant scholarship and long-term partnerships. I'll talk a little bit more about this shortly. We can go a step further and say, well, why don't we develop academic culture in the institution, and it should be locally symbiotic with the communities that we are working with. So not just we understand the communities that we are working with, but we are going to leverage that into a competitive advantage more broadly. Again, this is something other institutions can't do. Non-rural institutions don't have this flexibility. So I'll talk a little bit about leveraging local context as a research advantage and to integrate community engagement into academic life. And finally, over the longer term, it's useful if you can build institutional research capacity. So combined with the other two, this can position the institution as a reputable, a trustworthy thought leader, first in the region, then maybe nationally, and perhaps globally as well. So let me talk a little bit about each of these. Community-based scholarship, advancing knowledge with local relevance. You have to treat the community as a co-producer of knowledge, not just as something that's being studied. What does this look like? We can involve farmers, women's collectives, artisans, health workers, and so on, in actually framing the research question, not just when the research questions are done and we are reaching out to them. And in curriculum innovation, not that we've already done the curriculum and we're just going to teach you something. Similarly, we can use participatory methods, including the community as pedagogical tools. This strengthens the relevance of the work the institution is doing, and it builds trust. And both are a part of academic structure that higher education institutions can leverage. Similarly, strong engagement community or from the academic setting emerges from interactive continuity with effective partners, whether they're panchayats, local government offices, NGOs, primary health cures, and so on. So leading that community as an anchor institution also puts a responsibility on the institution to stand with the community, not just to study them, not just to do research, use them as a research source, but actually to stand with the community. And there's a long literature on anchor institutions. I'll mention that briefly towards the end. And so again, longer term, you have to think in terms of generations, not semesters or years or number of degrees in a year. This type of engagement overcomes university industry partnership challenges with university community partnership strengths. We can leverage, so building a locally symbiotic academic culture, we can leverage local context as a research advantage. So rural issues are not automatically small things that affect one community. A common tool in research is how do we generalize something that we have figured out in one context into other contexts. Nothing stops us from doing that in a rural setting either. So the main insights may generalize to similar contexts elsewhere, and this makes them globally relevant. And of course, there is no dearth of research questions anywhere, and that's, in my opinion, that's what I tell my students all the time. So similarly, in rural settings, you can talk about health, environment, economics, culture, law, crime, whatever is of interest. And faculty can connect local research to national or global debates, and this makes scholarship more rigorous and publishable, in addition to overcoming social challenges. Indeed, research rooted in place often has the deepest social impact, and that may be one of the missions of a rural institution. Engaging more with the community can take the form of, for example, annual community day, in which there are student community exhibitions, public talks, digital storytelling, maybe even local language journals. I'm told some of our students win gold medal and silver medal in Hindi. Use that as an advantage. Use that as an advantage to communicate scholarship to the community. So these sorts of platforms validate community voices. They are relevant, they are important. We are going to study them carefully. And they motivate students and faculty alike. We can integrate community engagement further into academic life, just because that's how you make it sustainable. If you treat community engagement, if you treat research, if you treat publications as extra, it'll be very hard to actually make it work. It's easier and also harder to implement institutionally, but once implemented, easier to work on something that's part of your everyday life. So for example, easy to have credit-bearing community research projects, field-based capstones, interdisciplinary courses co-taught with practitioners from the community perhaps, perfectly fine. So this both trains students in research skills, overcoming another limitation, and it makes learning deeply meaningful. So we had many speakers mention, do something that's important, don't stop at something, figure out what is important to you, and go further in your education in that direction. Nothing stops you from doing that in graduate education and research as well. In order to build institutional research culture, that's a little bit longer term project, but I'm going to put it out there so that the faculty of the college, the students, start thinking about it. So in many, redefining research, because in many rural institutions, research feels distant or intimidating. Who's going to do that? Who does that? Why is that really important? That's not the case for research. So the first shift is conceptual. Frame research as systematic curiosity. Just you're curious about something. So emphasize local problem solving. Why does something work? Why does something not work? If something doesn't work, how can we solve it? Have others solved it? If they have, what did they do? Can we do the same thing here? Perhaps some of it works, some of it doesn't work. Well, why does what works? Why does what doesn't work? Can we make something that doesn't work for us? Our case. These are all research questions. These are valid research questions. So start small. That's perfectly fine. Meaningful studies validate small, meaningful studies as legitimate research. When faculty and students will see research as relevant and doable, engagement will follow automatically. Again, just like community-based scholarship, embedding research into the teaching and curriculum is what will help it become self-sustaining. So similar to the case earlier, we can introduce research-based assignments, we can encourage mini projects, we can provide some hands-on workshop to help either students or faculty or both on research methods, research ethics, proposal writing, publication processes, so on, and protect time for thinking and writing. It's not just you have to teach more, you also have to think some more. And even if it's modest, but make it part of life, part of your regular duties. This helps faculty and students see research not as extra, but as part of academics itself. Build networks beyond the campus. Academic isolation is one of the biggest barriers in rural settings. So let's try to do something about that. Invite researchers for guest talks. And you can work online as a start. That's perfectly fine. Encourage participation, students and faculty, in conferences, seminars, research societies. Organize conferences that deepen connections with leading research. Again, it takes time, but with curiosity, with engagement, this will come. But you can start. Even 1 or 2 strong connections can transform institutional confidence. Additional ways to expand impact: we can collaborate with urban universities on comparative or multi-site studies. Some years ago, an urban university in Washington, D.C. wanted to collect some data on personal bankruptcies in the United States. Turned out that the historical data was stored in the Kansas City branch of the National Archives of the United States. I had done some work on bankruptcy earlier, so people knew a little bit about what I was doing. They reached out and said, could you collaborate on the multi-site project? I would collect the data in Kansas City, we would send it over to American University in Washington, D.C., and this was a very nice collaboration. Ended up with the Alfred Sloan Foundation grant, with the National Science Foundation grant. These are top-level grants. And similarly, invite external scholars to engage with local projects. Would you like to talk, at least shed some light on what we are doing? Develop consortium access, a collaborative of universities, schools, colleges that can pool their collective resources to tap academic research resources. So these sorts of activities help rural work travel out and brings new ideas back home. And finally, reward, recognize, celebrate effort. Recognition is a powerful currency. So recognize and celebrate research efforts, not just publications. Highlight success stories within the college, outside the college, to others. Celebrate student research, even if it's a certificate or an award. I would have liked to receive some award when I was a student. You don't need elaborate systems. You need to put it in the culture of the institutions. So you can have small internal grants, hold an annual research day, mini conference, just students presenting their ideas or faculty engaging with each other. Internal working paper series. You can pair early career faculty with more experienced mentors and so on. But dignity, encouragement, and curiosity, they will sustain research more than just saying, go out and produce, go out and publish. Okay, those are the main ideas. The pathways that I've articulated here serve to overcome challenges faced by rural higher education institutions and help them lead in areas with strengths. But, good thing, they also align with the broader academic environment, national education policy, national priorities, global scholarship, and availability of practical resources. Let me talk about that briefly. So for example, the UGC 2019 published curricular guidelines on fostering social responsibility and community engagement in higher education institutions in India. Many of the things that I'm talking about fit in the points that they have raised. The national education policy is seeking to shift the paradigm from exam-centered, rigid education to learner-centered, research-oriented, socially responsive system. It seeks to empower learners and teachers, especially in underserved and rural contexts, so that education becomes a transformative force for individuals and society. That's what I'm saying too. So so these sorts of ideas fit well. With national priorities, Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, the 2.0 version, seeks capacity enhancement of higher education institutions in research and training activities, especially in rural India. It seeks transformational change in rural development processes explicitly by leveraging knowledge institutions, and so on. So, importantly, Unnat Bharat Abhiyan seeks institutional participation. So start a conversation. Talk to some other people there, see what you are doing, what you could be doing, so it fits with the national priorities. It aligns with the Earth Ganga mission, which seeks restoration and conservation of River Ganga to strengthen economic development. For example, regional details in the Earth Ganga project published by, a report published by IIT Roorkee and IIM Lucknow, explicitly talks about the economic setup of District Pratapgarh. This is available online for free. Anyone can use it. Earlier, one of the people was talking about Amla and its role in the economy of Pratapgarh. It makes sense to me now. So, global scholarship as well, the United Nations, UNESCO, OECD, are all, what I'm talking about aligns with their ideas. There are long academic literatures on community-based scholarship and anchor institutions. I've listed a few, but you can easily spend 6 months or a year just reading the academic literature. And what I'm talking about is also benefited by the availability of practical sources. So I'll mention some of the ones based in the United States. We have a nationally designated research center focused on higher education in rural areas. Harvard has a national center to study rural education using research studies. The Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia has a community development program. It's coming out of their Anchor Economy Initiative, which is part of workforce and economic development for the country. University of Pennsylvania has a center focused on university community partnerships, exactly the kind of things that may benefit a rural institution. And the Carnegie classification of institutions of higher education is a widely used classification by the American Council of Education to rate all US universities. And it has a special recognition to universities for community engagement. The University of Kansas just got its certification for that a few years ago. So there are lots of resources available to go in this direction. Practical one, people who have thought about how to make this work. Okay, so towards the end, bigger picture. The overall vision that I'm trying to present here is fairly clear after all of this argument. A rural anchor institution that leverages its community-based strengths and global insights to achieve academic excellence. Such an institution anchors knowledge in local realities. It studies the soil it stands on, the livelihoods, histories, and languages and aspirations of its people. It honors lived experience, people who are living their lives. This is a form of expertise. And it recognizes that rigorous scholarship can emerge from rural questions just as powerfully as from metropolitan labs. It empowers those with the fewest academic opportunities. It builds human capital where it is needed most. Each graduate is not just a degree holder, but understands knowledge better, can apply knowledge better, can advance knowledge better. And the multiplicative effects can be profound. It refuses to lower expectations. Instead, it raises structures of support to attain high standards. It affirms that excellence and inclusion are not opposites, they are partners. It does not see itself as peripheral, something that's out there, out in the wilderness, doing who knows whatever, but as pivotal, not as just a recipient of knowledge from a textbook, but as a generator of knowledge, not as a modest teaching center on the margins, but as a confident anchor of intellectual and social transformation. And it aligns itself confidently with national and global standards, meets rigorous standards, contributes to national priorities, and engages global scholarship. To conclude, when a rural institution embraces this vision, it achieves something transformative. It not only excels, but it redefines what academic excellence means. It does not merely deliver curriculum, but it reformulates what higher education should look like. It does not simply produce students, but it reshapes individuals, regions, and societies. For rural higher educational institutions, that is their academic promise. Indeed, that is their educational responsibility. And for all of us, that is the future we are called upon to build. Thank you.
Yeah, So let me thank our previous speaker, Dr. Tarun Sabarwal. That was very insightful, and it was complimentary because it talked about graduate studies and research in a rural setting. So it was quite complimentary to the previous talks. Now, I would like to invite our session chairperson, Ms. Monika Joshi, President, CEO, StudentNest Foundation, USA, for giving a concluding remarks of the session.
मैं हिंदी में बोलूं? कोशिश करती हूँ। पहले मैं आपसे ये बताना चाहती थी कि जो डॉक्टर टैंजी अभी आप लोगों को, बच्चों को, स्कूल के बच्चों, कॉलेज के बच्चों को जो बताना चाह रही थी, वो मैं एक बार फिर से रिपीट करना चाहती हूँ, ताकि अगर बाय चांस कुछ थोड़ा बहुत ट्रांसलेशन में रह गया हो, वो इतना इम्पोर्टेंट पॉइंट है कि आपको ज़रूर सुनना चाहिए। उनका कहना था कि जब आप एक स्टूडेंट हो तो आप अपने आसपास किसी मेंटोर को ढूंढो। कोई टीचर हो, कोई और किसी जॉब में हो, तो आप ऐसा करो, उनके पास जाके उनसे बात करो। जैसा सुबह वीसी सर भी कह रहे थे कि जब आपको कोई दिखाई देते हैं टीचर्स या जो ज़्यादा लर्नर्ड लोग हैं, आप उनसे जाएं और उनसे बातचीत करें और देखें वो क्या काम करते हैं, वो क्या जॉब करते हैं, क्या आपको उसमें इंटरेस्ट है, क्या आप वैसे बनना चाहते हो। फिर आप उनसे प्रश्न पूछो खूब सारे। आप इतने लकी हो, आपके पास इतने सारे एलुमनाइज आए हैं आज, आप इनसे सबसे बात करो और इनसे पूछो कि आप क्या करते हो, हम कैसे कर सकते हैं। फिर जब आपको ये लगेगा कि आपका उस चीज़ में इंटरेस्ट है, तो फिर वो आपको आगे बढ़ने की क्षमता देगा। और अगर आपको लगेगा कि नहीं ये जॉब मुझे नहीं करनी है, तो कोई बात नहीं, आप दूसरा करियर ढूंढो। तो ये बहुत स्ट्रांगली और बहुत प्यार से इन्होंने समझाई थी ये बात आज थोड़ी देर पहले। तो मैंने सोचा मैं आपको एक बार फिर से ये चीज़ बताऊं कि बहुत ज़रूरी है आपका मेंटोर लेना। मेंटोर माने कोई भी जो आपके सीनियर्स हो सकते हैं, आपके टीचर्स हो सकते हैं, आपके आसपास कोई भी एडल्ट्स जो कोई भी जॉब करते हैं, उनसे सीखने के लिए। और इसी बात में जो बड़े हैं, जो टीचर्स हैं, जो फैकल्टी है हमारी, या जो अलुमनाई हैं, वो भी अपनी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी से छोटे बच्चों का मार्गदर्शन करें। अगर कोई आपकी तरफ आए तो उनको थोड़ा सपोर्ट करें। अगर आपको एक बच्चे को भी अगर आप हेल्प ऐसी दे सकते हो, तो यहाँ पे कितने कम से कम 100-150 लोग हैं जो ऑलरेडी जॉब्स कर रहे हैं, टीचर्स हैं, अलुमनाइज हैं। तो आप सोचिए, आप अगर एक एक जन भी हेल्प कर सकता है, तो आप कितनी आगे बच्चों को उठा सकते हैं। तो मुझे लगा ये पॉइंट मैं आपको एक बार फिर से दोबारा से समझाती हूँ। That's thank you for Tangee. I was just repeating what you had said in Hindi. So, आज का जो दिन था वो एक खाली कॉन्फ्रेंस का दिन नहीं था, ये एक शुरुआत थी। ये शुरुआत में आज हम सब आपके साथ हैं, इसके लिए हम बहुत दिल से आभारी हैं। आपने सिर्फ ये प्रेजेंटेशन नहीं सुनी, हमने सोचा, हमने सवाल किए, हमने कुछ सच्चाइयों का सामना भी किया, हमने बात की हायर एजुकेशन की, लेकिन हमने ज़्यादा बात की अवसर की। हमने याद किया कि एजुकेशन सिर्फ डिग्री नहीं है, एजुकेशन है आत्मनिर्भरता, एजुकेशन है सम्मान, और ये है एक बेहतर जीवन की दिशा। हमने चुनौतियों की भी बात की, डिस्टेंस की बात की, आज एक्सेस की बात की, अफोर्डेबिलिटी की बात की। ये सब असली हैं, हम सब जानते हैं इन्हें। एक बात मैं अपने एक्सपीरियंस से कहना चाहती हूँ, मैंने भारत के गांव भी देखे हैं और मैंने अमेरिका के गांव भी देखे हैं। हाँ, अमेरिका में भी गांव होते हैं, लेकिन सच बताऊँ तो समस्याएं सबकी अलग दिखती हैं, लेकिन जड़ एक ही है। और वही डिस्टेंस वहाँ है और यही डिस्टेंस यहाँ है। वहाँ रिसोर्सेज की कमी नहीं है, गवर्नमेंट बहुत पैसा देती है, लेकिन इशू सेम है। पेरेंटिंग का इशू, घर का इशू, बच्चों के इंटरेस्ट ना होने का इशू, घर वालों को ये ना पढ़ाई की अहमियत ना समझने का इशू, ये सब तरफ सेम है। फ़र्क कम है लेकिन जिम्मेदारी ज़्यादा है। लेकिन आज एक बात बहुत साफ हुई कि हम सॉल्यूशंस के बिना नहीं हैं, हमारे पास सॉल्यूशंस हैं। मेंटरशिप है, हम मेंटरशिप कर सकते हैं। ब्लेंडेड लर्निंग भी है हमारे पास, सपोर्ट सिस्टम भी है हमारे पास, और उससे सबसे ज़रूरी ये है कि हम सब हैं यहाँ, और हमारे पास इतने बड़े मेंटर हमारे फाउंडर हैं और हमारे करंट प्रेसिडेंट्स और पास्ट प्रेसिडेंट्स हैं इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के। और एजुकेशन सिस्टम कितना भी मजबूत क्यों ना हो, अगर बिलीफ नहीं है तो कुछ भी नहीं बदलता। अगर बिलीफ है तो बहुत कुछ बदल सकता है। कभी कभी स्टूडेंट्स को सिलेबस से ज़्यादा एक सिंपल सेंटेंस की ज़रूरत होती है, बस सिर्फ इतना सुनने की कि तुम कर सकते हो। आप अगर एक टीचर अगर बच्चे को कहती है कि या कहते हैं कि तुम कर सकते हो, और जब कोई ये कहता है और सच्चाई से कहता है तो कुछ अंदर बदलता है, कॉन्फिडेंस आता है, डायरेक्शन मिलती है, और धीरे धीरे वह स्टूडेंट अपनी जगह खुद बनाने लगता है। और शायद यही हमारी सबसे बड़ी जिम्मेदारी है। और आज के इस सेशन के एंड में मैं आपके पास एक सवाल छोड़कर जाना चाहती हूँ। ये नहीं कि आज हमने क्या सुना, आप ये सोचिए कि अब हम क्या करेंगे। क्या हम एक स्टूडेंट को एक अलग नज़र से देखेंगे? क्या हम एक छोटा सा बदलाव लाएंगे, या फिर सब कुछ वैसे ही चलता रहेगा जैसे चलता आया है? क्योंकि सच्चाई ये है कि चेंज आसान नहीं होता, लेकिन इम्पैक्ट हमेशा उसी से आता है, छोटे छोटे चेंजेस से। और जाते जाते एक और छोटी सी बात, कल जब आप वापस आएंगे इस सत्र के लिए, अगले सत्र के लिए, तो आइडियाज़ नहीं, कोई एक्शन लेके आइएगा अपने दिमाग से। क्योंकि आइडियाज़ अच्छे होते हैं, लेकिन बदलाव आइडियाज़ से नहीं आता, बदलाव एक्शन से आता है। बदलाव एक्शन से आता है। थैंक यू आप सबके टाइम के लिए आज का, एंड आई कंक्लूड।
So thank you once again to all our respected speakers and dignitaries. With this, we conclude the International Keynote Session. I now request all the dignitaries and the participants to kindly join us for tea in the dining area. The next session will start now from 3:45 p.m.
मालवीय अनुशीलन केंद्र of Banaras Hindu University. Thank you, sir. We once again express our heartfelt gratitude to Ms. Monika Joshi ma'am for her gracious presence with us. We are honored to have Ms. Monika Joshi ma'am with us, who has already inspired us through her valuable presence in the earlier session. Ma'am, we are grateful to have you with us once again. I would now request you to kindly deliver a memorial lecture. Please welcome Ms. Monika Joshi.
Radhe Radhe. Today, as we come to close the first day of conference, I want to take a moment to pause, not to discuss ideas, not to talk about plans, but to remember, to reflect on who made all of this possible. Jagat Guru Shri Kripaluji Maharaj. Everything we've seen here, the schools, the hospitals, the opportunities created for so many began with a very simple but very powerful decision that education should be free, that healthcare should be free, that dignity should never depend on someone's ability to pay. In this rural area, that was not a small decision. That was a commitment to humanity. I first encountered Jagadguru Kripaluji Maharaj in 2004. And I say this very honestly, his teachings changed the course of my life. Not slowly, not casually, decisively. They changed how I understood responsibility. They changed how I understood service. They changed how I understood what it means to live with purpose. And even today, I still ask myself, what did I do to deserve his direct association? There are moments in our life, that feel unearned in the most sacred way. That was one of them. Badi Didi. And then, through that grace came my association with Dr. Vishakha Tripathi, whom we call Badi Didi. If Maharaji gave us direction, Badi Didi gave us a living example, someone to look up to, someone who showed us how to carry this work with humility and lead in a way that speaks through actions, not words. Badi Didi did not just continue a mission, she protected it, she strengthened it, she made sure it stayed true to its course. And that's not easy. It is easy to expand something. It is much harder to carry it forward the right way. And what we're witnessing today is that this lineage continues. Today, under the guidance of Dr. Shyama Tripathi, our Manjli Didi, we continue to see that same steadiness, that same quiet strength, that same commitment to keeping the work grounded and true. Over the past year and a half, Manjli Didi's presence has been calm, thoughtful, and guiding, not seeking recognition, but ensuring continuity. And alongside her, Dr. Krishna Tripathi, Choti Didi, continues to carry forward this spirit of service with the same sincerity and devotion we have come to recognize. This is what makes this work different. It is not dependent on anyone. It is a responsibility that is understood, shared, and carried forward. Under their leadership, the work continues to grow. More students, more families served, more lives touched. But what stands out is not just the scale, it's how it is done. Attention to the smallest details, a uniform, a school bag, stationery, a bicycle, so a girl can safely get to school. Because when you remove these small barriers, you don't just change the access, you change belief. The same with the hospitals. Patients are not asked what they can afford. They are treated first with dignity, with care. This is not charity, this is responsibility. And sometimes the impact of this work is not visible right away. We don't always see the results. We don't always know who's watching or how far it will go, but it goes. Several years ago, I brought a group of students from Los Angeles to India, as you can see in the picture, not as tourists, not here to help, but just to see. They walked through these schools, talked to the students and teachers, and saw their passion for education. They got to meet Badi Didi. They stood in these hospitals and saw dedication of the doctors, nurses, pharmacies, and front desk and other volunteer staff. They saw something different, and something shifted. Both of those students made the commitment to study and get their degrees inspired by JKPE schools. Libby got her degree in sociology. That's Libby. Okay. That's Libby for you. She was the first person in her family to go to college. Then Eddie, he went on to serve as a TSA agent and then graduated from United Division as United States Secret Service agent at the White House. I got an invitation to attend his graduation. I have since received updates with his pictures in uniform and one at party with President Joe Biden in December of 2024. You know how he was inspired by the school, by the students, by the teachers. To give you a little bit more of the story on these two kids, they were getting in a lot of trouble because of being in the wrong crowd. And seeing how the schools, how these institutions work, it inspired them to go to school and actually do so well in their lives. I'm not sharing this as a success story. I'm sharing this as proof that what is built here travels. Proof that values once seen stay. After everything, he wrote me a letter. And what he shared was simple. Can I get the letter back on there, please? Back, one more. One more. So here he talks about his story, and he says in 2015, I was an 18-year-old growing up in South LA, community filled with challenges. My environment, he was in gang involvement, substance abuse, constant interaction with the justice system, meaning in jail, with police encounters. And then, go back one more time. And then he goes down to say that he came to India and he saw the schools and he saw how the culture, perspective, and possibilities were possible. And he went back and he continued to study and went to school. And now he works at White House with current president in his house. So what he shared was simple, that what he saw here stayed with him, that it shaped how he carries himself even today. That is when you realize something. We don't always see the impact of what we're doing, but it reaches farther than we know. And many of you sitting here today are part of that story. You have studied here, you have served here, you've been shaped by this work. If you are one of those alumni, this moment belongs to you because you are the continuation of what was started. So as we close today, let us not think only about what has been built. Let us think about what we are carrying forward, because this work does not end. It does not stop with one person. It continues through all of us. May we carry it with the same humility, the same responsibility, and the same commitment to serve without condition. As our Didis have always said, Seva hi sadhana hai. Service itself is our path. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for these heartfelt and inspiring words. Through your address, we could truly feel the noble vision dedication and lifelong contribution of Badi Didi, whose leadership and service have left a lasting impact on society and on this institution. Her values and ideals continue to inspire all of us. Now, it is my privilege to introduce Professor A.R. Tripathi sir, professor and coordinator at Banaras Hindu University with more than 4 decades of rich experience in teaching, research, and academic administration. He has served in several prestigious academic positions and has made significant contribution to higher education through his research, publications, and leadership role. We are truly honored to have you with us today. I now request Professor A.R. Tripathi sir to kindly deliver his plenary talk.
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय हरये परमात्मने प्रणतक्लेशनाशाय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। हे कृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेव, हे कृष्ण नारायण वासुदेवाय। सबसे पहले नमन करते हैं, प्रणाम करते हैं उस दिव्य विभूति को जिनकी कृपा प्रसाद से आज हम लोग यहाँ खड़े हैं। जगत गुरु हरिहर कृपालु जी महाराज के चरणों में श्री नमन। तीनों दीदियों के चरणों में नमन। आज ये जो आयोजन है, इसके लिए मैं अपने हृदय से बधाई देता हूँ कृपालु महिला महाविद्यालय के परम आदरणीय प्राचार्य प्रोफेसर अशोक नागर जी तथा उनकी टीम को, क्योंकि जो विषय चुना गया वह विषय बड़ा ही समीचीन है। इसके 3 खंड हैं आज के इस कॉन्फ्रेंस के, 3 सेगमेंट्स। द फर्स्ट वन इज एडवांसिंग हायर एजुकेशन, शिक्षा। हम शिक्षा को किस रूप में करें, कैसे आगे बढ़ाएं, दिस इज द फर्स्ट सेगमेंट। द सेकेंड सेगमेंट इज द हार्ट ऑफ इंडियन इकोनॉमी, that is rural economy, rural sector. As in the inaugural session, Chief Guest Honorable Vice Chancellor pointed out that 2/3 of the population resides in rural India. तो अब आप समझ सकते हैं कि हमारी जो एक्चुअल स्ट्रेंथ है 2/3 इस क्षेत्र में है, जिसको प्रोफेसर नागर ने अपने कॉन्फ्रेंस के लिए चुना, वह है रूरल इंडिया। रूरल सेक्टर में हम कैसे उच्च शिक्षा को एडवांस करें। एंड द थर्ड वन इज which has been proved by the inaugural session and by the presence of our guests from the United States, global insight. They expressed that in what manner the higher education is being advanced in the rural sector, rural economy of the United States as well as elsewhere in the globe. So that has been proved. So I would like just to throw light on these 3 segments. The first one is Vidya, higher education, उच्च शिक्षा कैसी हो। तो मैं जो कॉलेज का, महाविद्यालय का वाक्य है वहीं से शुरू करते हैं। कैसी विद्या को हम एडवांस करें। सा विद्या तन मतिर्यया, एक इसी से मिलता जुलता है जो सामान्यतया बहुत संस्थाओं ने यूज किया। हमारे वेद वाक्य, हमारे शास्त्र भी कहते हैं या विद्या सा विमुक्त है, लेकिन कॉलेज का जो महावाक्य है वह है सा विद्या तन मतिर्यया। दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। व्हाट टाइप ऑफ नॉलेज वी आर गोइंग टू एडवांस, व्हाट टाइप ऑफ एजुकेशन we are interested to advance, and that knowledge must attach to us to God Almighty. उससे हम जुड़ पाएं, ईश्वर से जुड़ पाएं, भगवान से जुड़ पाएं, और तभी जब तक हमारी मति शुद्ध नहीं होगी तब तक हम कुछ नहीं कर सकते। हम खूब अपने भाषण दें, लेकिन जब तक यूनिटी नहीं होगी, यूनिटी ऑफ कमांड नहीं होगा फ्रॉम द ग्लोब, फ्रॉम द ऑलमाइटी विथ अस, देन वी कैन नॉट अचीव। तो मुक्ति भी वरी से, तमाम तरह की प्रॉब्लम से जो हमें मुक्ति दिलाए वह हमारी विद्या है। यह विद्या सा विमुक्त है, सा विद्या तन मतिर्यया, जो भगवान से जोड़े, ईश्वर से जोड़े, गॉड ऑलमाइटी से जोड़े, तभी हमारी विद्या सार्थक होगी। शायद यदि हम इस तरह की विद्या को एडवांस करते हैं तो हमें प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगी और ऐसी विद्या मिलेगी जिसके लिए हम परेशान रहते हैं। बिकॉज रिसोर्सेज आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू गेट नॉलेज। कोई काम हम करें बिना रिसोर्स के नहीं होगा। हमें धन चाहिए। ये कॉन्फ्रेंस हो रही बिना धन के नहीं हो सकती। हर क्षेत्र में, हर जगह, हर स्टेप पर हमें धन चाहिए। और जब हम ऐसी विद्या का विकास करेंगे, एडवांसमेंट करेंगे, तो देयर विल नॉट बी एनी प्रॉब्लम फॉर द रिसोर्स। क्यों? क्योंकि विद्या धनम सर्वधनम प्रधानम। सभी धन से प्रधान क्या है? विद्या धन। यदि विद्या धन हमारे पास है तो हम सबसे सर्वोच्च हैं, क्योंकि ऐसा धन है अनपैरेलल। जो भी धन रिसोर्स हमारे पास है, जब उसको हम खर्च करेंगे तो समाप्त होगा, एक दिन जीरो हो जाएगा। बट दिस धन, दिस वेल्थ which is being advanced by our ancestors, our great scholars, जगत गुरु हरिहर कृपालु जी महाराज की कृपा से जो धन आगे बढ़ेगा, व्यय कृते वर्धत एव नित्यम विद्या धनम सर्वधनम प्रधानम। जितना ही व्यय करिए उतना ही बढ़ता जाएगा। व्यय कृते, खूब खर्च करिए, व्यय कृते वर्धत एव नित्यम, प्रतिदिन बढ़ेगा, नित्य बढ़ेगा। यह धन सबसे बड़ा धन है। और मैं विद्यार्थियों से ये कहना चाहूँगा, क्योंकि मेरा जो काशी हिंदू विश्वविद्यालय का 4 दशक से अधिक का अनुभव है, कि प्रिय विद्यार्थियों, पात्रता डेवलप करिए। और यह पात्रता कहाँ से आती है? विद्या ददाति विनयम। यह जो विद्या जिसकी बात हम कर रहे हैं, जिसके एडवांसमेंट की बात कर रहे हैं, यदि ये डेवलप होती है तो हमें सबसे पहला क्या आता है, हमें प्राप्ति क्या होती है? वह है विद्या ददाति विनयम। हमें विनय देती है, और विनय से फिर आगे एडवांसमेंट होता जाता है। विनयात पात्रता, और उससे पात्रता आती है। जब तक हमारे अंदर एलिजिबिलिटी नहीं आएगी तब तक हमें अचीवमेंट हो जाए। लेकिन ये जो त्रासदी आई, अभी कोविड से उबर करके हम लोग आए, कोविड ने ये बता दिया कि हम लोग इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी के टूल्स की मदद से एडवांस कर सकते हैं। वी कैन एडवांस, वी कैन एक्सपेंड एजुकेशन। और हमारी यूजीसी, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एजुकेशन भी अब उस लाइन पर आगे बढ़ रही है कि हम ऑनलाइन एजुकेशन को प्रमोट करेंगे। तो नाउ प्लेस इज नो बैरियर, रूरल अर्बन इज नो बैरियर। प्रोफेसर नवल जी बैठे हुए हैं, इग्नू के भी आने से साक्षरता में, शिक्षा में बढ़ोतरी हुई, और विशेष करके महिलाओं में। महिलाएं भी अच्छे से अपना काम शुरू की, पढ़ना शुरू की, क्योंकि देश भर में जो स्टडी सेंटर खोले गए उनके माध्यम से, दूरस्थ शिक्षा के माध्यम से, डिस्टेंस लर्निंग के माध्यम से बालिकाओं का एजुकेशन बढ़ा। तो आज टेक्नोलॉजी की मदद से हम ये अचीव कर सकते हैं 100% एजुकेशन का लेवल, नॉट लिटरेसी, वी कैन अचीव इट। और जिस दिन हम ये टारगेट अपना अचीव कर लेंगे तो आई एश्योर यू एंड वी कैन बी वेरी सेटिस्फाइड दैट अनडाउटेडली आवर इकॉनमी विल बी द फर्स्ट वन इन द ग्लोब। हम सबसे आगे बढ़ेंगे। यूजुअली नाउ ह्यूमन रिसोर्सेज आर ट्रीटेड एज ह्यूमन कैपिटल, तो इन टर्म्स ऑफ ह्यूमन कैपिटल वी आर सॉवरेन। हमसे बड़ा कोई नहीं, सबसे बड़ी मानव पूंजी है। लेकिन वह पूंजी, हम इकोनॉमिक कॉमर्स के प्रोफेसर हैं, प्रोडक्टिव अभी नहीं हो पा रही। वी हैव टू ट्राई टू बिकम द प्रोडक्टिव वन। कैपिटल हमारी तभी यूजफुल है, प्रॉफिटेबल होगी, जब हम उसकी प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ा दें। और प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ाने का केवल एक रास्ता है, वह रास्ता है एजुकेशन। शिक्षा के माध्यम से ही हम एडवांस कर सकते हैं। तो सिंस दिस सेशन इज क्वेश्चन आंसर सेशन, तो वी शैल इंटरेक्ट विद द क्वेश्चंस। तो विद दीज वर्ड्स आई अगेन thank you to all of you for giving me this opportunity to share my views in this international conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an enlightening and informative talk. Now we open the floor for few questions and interaction with the audience. You may please raise your hand if you have any question. Okay, audience. Yes.
Radhe Radhe sir. Radhe Radhe sir. Sir, my question is, how does online learning differ from traditional learning system?
Please repeat the question.
Sir, my question is, how does online learning differ from traditional learning system?
May I congratulate the question done by the student, because I ended my speech on this particular level, online education. देखिए, दोनों अलग अलग चीज है। ऑनलाइन एजुकेशन अलग है और ट्रेडिशनल एजुकेशन अलग है। लेकिन ट्रेडिशनल एजुकेशन की लिमिटेशन है। आप स्कूल कॉलेजेज में जाएंगे, अटेंड करेंगे, देयर इज ए टाइम बाउंड अप्रोच, एक समयावधि में आपको जाना पड़ेगा। तो वही मैंने कहा कि देयर आर सेवरल लिमिटेशंस, विशेष करके हमारी बच्चियों के लिए बहुत लिमिटेशंस हैं। और वो लिमिटेशंस खत्म हो जाती है जब हम ऑनलाइन एजुकेशन की तरफ बढ़ते हैं। तो ऑनलाइन एजुकेशन ऐसी परिस्थितियों में सबसे बढ़िया है जिनके पारिवारिक दायित्व हैं या कोई लिमिटेशन, कोई दिक्कत है, दूर है कॉलेज। अभी भी हमारे कॉलेज यद्यप संख्या बहुत बढ़ी, लेकिन तब भी इतने नहीं बढ़ी कि हमारी पूरी पॉपुलेशन को कैटर करे और आपको 1-2 किलोमीटर, 4 किलोमीटर, 5 किलोमीटर के अंदर एक कॉलेज मिल जाए, और वह भी आपकी पसंद का। इसलिए यदि आप ऑनलाइन एजुकेशन आप करते हो, तो मैं समझता हूं कि आपको इतनी सुविधाएं मिलती हैं जो कभी भी फिजिकल में नहीं मिलेगी। जैसे एक उदाहरण लीजिए, तो कृपालु महिला महाविद्यालय में भी बीए, बीकॉम, बीएससी एंड बीएड, यही है ना, केवल 4 ऑप्शन आपके पास है। नाउ द स्टूडेंट्स आर कंपेल्ड टू ऑप्ट द कोर्सेज एज पर नॉट एज पर देयर चॉइस, एज पर देयर कंपल्सन, कि आपको इन्हीं 4 में से पढ़ना है। मान लीजिए, जैसे हो क्या रहा है कि समाज में जब बच्चे मिलते हैं तो कभी कहते हैं कि साहब जो पढ़े वो हमारी प्रैक्टिस में कहीं नहीं आ रहा है। तो अब इधर प्रतापगढ़ के आसपास अभी जो मैं देखा, या हम लोग तो यहीं पास के ही हैं, एग्रीकल्चर हमारा फंडामेंटल ऑक्यूपेशन। अब मान लीजिए कोई बच्ची एग्रीकल्चर पढ़ना चाहे, तो इधर आसपास कोई संस्थान नहीं है कि एग्रीकल्चर पढ़ सके। तो कन्वेंशनल एजुकेशन, ट्रेडिशनल एजुकेशन हैज इट्स लिमिटेशन, बट एज फार एज ऑनलाइन एजुकेशन इज कंसर्न, दो इट इज बीइंग डेवलप्ड, अभी भी वो सुविधा नहीं है। तमाम जो एक्सपेरिमेंटल सब्जेक्ट्स हैं उसमें नहीं खोला गया, लेकिन मैं समझता हूं कि डे विल कम जब हमारे पास एम्पल अपॉर्चुनिटी ऑनलाइन की रहेगी, हम कोई भी कोर्स कर सकते हैं और एडजेसेंट जो हमारे लैब होंगे उनसे हम अटैच होके अपने लैब का भी पूरा काम कर सकते हैं। तो इसलिए ये दोनों अलग अलग चीजें हैं, लेकिन हमारे लिए सुविधाएं दोनों में उपलब्ध हैं। जो ट्रेडिशनल कोर्स है, चूंकि हम लोग तो ट्रेडिशनल कोर्स से ही जीवन भर संबंधित रहे, एक सबसे बड़ा फायदा ये होता है कि आई कांटेक्ट होता है, फेस टू फेस। तो फेस टू फेस में और ऑनलाइन में ये फर्क। दूसरी बात जो अभी भी हम लोग महसूस करते हैं, यद्यपि बहुत सारा डिजिटल हो गया, लेकिन जब तक कनेक्टिविटी अच्छी नहीं होगी तब तक पता लगा कि सेंडर तो मैसेज दे रहा है लेकिन रिसीवर रिसीव ही नहीं कर रहा। तो ये कुछ लिमिटेशंस भी हैं, इसलिए बहुत कहना तो मुश्किल है कि ट्रेडिशनल अच्छा है कि ऑनलाइन अच्छा है। दोनों के अपने अपने मेरिट्स और डीमेरिट्स हैं। थैंक यू।
Any other question?
राधे राधे सर, मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि हम ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में उच्च शिक्षा को कैसे बढ़ावा दे सकते हैं, या ऐसे कैसे कदम उठाने चाहिए कि उच्च शिक्षा को बढ़ावा मिले।
बहुत बढ़िया, बड़ा अच्छा लगा, क्योंकि हमने इसका विश्लेषण अभी रूरल सेक्टर में किया है और हमने मालवीय जी को भी कोट किया और जगतगुरु को भी कोट किया कि इन दोनों महान विभूतियों ने हमारे ग्रामीण शिक्षा के लिए बड़ा भारी योगदान दिया है। बहुत स्कोप है। हमारी जो इंटेलेक्ट गांव में रहती है, शिक्षा संस्थाओं के अभाव में वो देश के काम नहीं आ रही। मुझे बताने में बड़ी प्रसन्नता हो रही है कि जब मैं बहुत लोगों के संस्मरण पढ़ता हूं अपने विश्वविद्यालय के एलुमनाई का, तो वो कहते थे कि मालवीय जी के पास हम गए, प्रणाम किए कि बाबूजी कुछ है नहीं, कोई संसाधन नहीं है, गरीब हैं, लेकिन विश्वविद्यालय में पढ़ना चाहते हैं। और मालवीय जी इतने सहृदय थे कि उन बच्चों को कोई न कोई काम दे देते थे कि जाओ लाइब्रेरी की बिल्डिंग बन रही, उसी की देख रेख करना, और वहाँ एक कमरा बना हुआ है, उसी में रहना, खाना पीना, जो काम देखोगे उसकी 10 रुपये स्कॉलरशिप हम दे देंगे, और रहने का फ्री हो गया, जाओ पढ़ो। ऐसे बच्चे आगे चल करके देश के बहुत बड़े इंजीनियर बने, बहुत बड़े एग्रीकल्चर साइंटिस्ट बने, बहुत बड़े एडवोकेट बने। तो प्रिय विद्यार्थियों, हमारी जो पोटेंशियलिटीज़ है रूरल सेक्टर में बहुत अधिक है, लेकिन अभी हम विकसित नहीं हो पाए। उतने संस्थान हमारे ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में नहीं बन पाए और इसका स्कोप बहुत है। और जब ये बढ़ेगा या ऑनलाइन हर फील्ड में प्रमोट होगी, तो हमारा जो रूरल सेक्टर का इंटेलेक्ट है, जो पोटेंशियल है, वो हमारे देश के आर्थिक विकास को और भी तीव्रतर गति से आगे बढ़ाएगा। धन्यवाद।
राधे राधे सर। सर, मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि जैसे उच्च शिक्षा में निजी संस्थानों की संख्या बढ़ रही है, तो उससे शिक्षा की गुणवत्ता पर क्या प्रभाव पड़ेगा?
वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन बेटा। यह एक चैलेंज है। अभी आपने कुलपति राजेंद्र सिंह रज्जू भैया विश्वविद्यालय के व्याख्यान को सुना। जब इलाहाबाद विश्वविद्यालय केंद्रीय विश्वविद्यालय बन गया, उसके बाद रज्जू भैया विश्वविद्यालय स्टेट यूनिवर्सिटी के रूप में बना है, और उन्होंने केवल कहा करीब 750 डिग्री कॉलेजेस इलाहाबाद स्टेट यूनिवर्सिटी से एफिलिएट हो गए। और इधर और वो भी केवल 4 जिलों में, 4 या 3 जिले जो प्रयाग मंडल के हैं, 4 जिले। तो संख्या निश्चित रूप से बढ़ रही है, यूनिवर्सिटी बनती है और एफिलिएटेड कॉलेजेस की संख्या बहुत बढ़ जाती है। यह एक गंभीर प्रश्न है, यक्ष प्रश्न है। हम विकसित तभी हो सकते हैं, जैसे मैंने शुरू में ही एक आपके कृपालु महिला महाविद्यालय के ध्येय वाक्य से शुरू किया, मतिर। हमें अपना बुद्धि ठीक रखना पड़ेगा। कॉलेज संस्थापकों के लिए ये है, प्रोमोटर्स फॉर द कॉलेज, ये मेरा मैसेज है कि वो देश में शिक्षा का विकास करें, और शिक्षा लाभ के लिए नहीं। जिस दिन शिक्षा लाभ के लिए स्थापित होगी, संस्थान लाभ के लिए स्थापित होंगे, वहाँ गुणवत्ता नहीं आएगी, बल्कि वो रेवेन्यू कास्ट एनालिसिस होगी कॉमर्स की लैंग्वेज में, कि कितनी हमारी लागत आई और कितना हमको रेवेन्यू इससे जनरेट कर रहे हैं, उसका डिफरेंस कितना है, उस पर ध्यान चला जाएगा। मालवीय जी ने जब स्थापित किया तो इतनी कम फीस रखा कि सामान्य विद्यार्थी भी पढ़ ले। आज भी इवन टुडे इन 2026 लोअर फी ऑफ द बनारस हिंदू यूनिवर्सिटी 2,500-3 हजार रुपए में बच्चे ग्रेजुएट कर लेते हैं काशी हिंदू विश्वविद्यालय से, ग्रेजुएशन। और मैं बधाई देता हूं उस पुण्य विभूति को, दिव्य विभूति को, जिन्होंने मनगढ़ में एक ऐसा शिक्षा संस्थान बालिकाओं के लिए खोला। और जैसा मुझे बताया गया कि फ्री एजुकेशन, नॉट ओनली फ्री एजुकेशन फॉर दिस कॉलेज, this trust is disbursing, distributing essential items to elsewhere the colleges also, उनको भी किट दी जाती है। तो हमें उनकी बुद्धि के लिए, सद्बुद्धि के लिए प्रार्थना करनी पड़ेगी कि भगवान उनकी बुद्धि को सद्बुद्धि में बदलें, लाभ के लिए कॉलेज न बनाएं, संख्या बढ़े उसकी आवश्यकता है, क्योंकि अभी भी हमारा देश शिक्षा संस्थानों के मामले में बहुत कम। हम लोग जब पढ़ते थे 80s में, आपको बता रहे हैं कि बहुत कम कॉलेजेस थे, काफ़ी दूर जाना पड़ता था हायर एजुकेशन के लिए। तो जो अंदर से, जैसे कभी मैं एक श्लोक पढ़ता हूँ, बड़ा अच्छा लगता है, आपसे भी शेयर कर रहा हूँ। तो जो उत्साही बच्चे थे वो तो पढ़ पाते थे, थोड़ा भी उत्साह में कमी रहती थी तो वो पढ़ना छोड़ देते थे, क्योंकि स्कूल कॉलेजेस पास में नहीं थे, आर्थिक स्थिति भी सपोर्ट नहीं करती थी, इसलिए वो छोड़ देते थे। तो जो श्लोक हम शेयर करते हैं वो आपसे शेयर कर रहे हैं, और हम बच्चों से आग्रह करेंगे कि उन एट्रीब्यूट्स को एडॉप्ट करें। उत्साह संपन्न मदीर्घ सूत्रम, क्रिया विधिज्ञम व्यसने सुसक्तम, सूरम कृतज्ञम दृढ़ सौहृदम च। यदि इतने गुण आप में आ जाएं तो हमारे जो धन की लक्ष्मी हैं, धन की देवी हैं लक्ष्मी, लक्ष्मी स्वयं जात निवास हेतु। तो डियर स्टूडेंट्स, आई अपील टू ऑल ऑफ यू दैट यू मस्ट डेवलप दीज ट्रेट्स, उत्साह संपन्न मदीर्घ सूत्रम, क्रिया विधिज्ञम व्यसने सुसक्तम, सूरम कृतज्ञम दृढ़ सौहृदम च, लक्ष्मी स्वयं जात निवास हेतु।
थैंक यू सर।
Any more question?
राधे राधे सर। सर मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि नई शिक्षा नीति 2020 का ग्रामीण युवाओं के विकास पर क्या प्रभाव पड़ा है?
वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन। ये पहला प्रश्न है। जो राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति जो 2020 में लागू हुई, छठा साल है हम लोगों का, ग्रामीण क्षेत्र पर इसका क्या प्रभाव पड़ेगा? देखिए, शिक्षा नीति की जो खास बात है, हम तो कई ओकेजन्स पर कहते हैं कि काशी हिंदू विश्वविद्यालय राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति पर तो सतत अग्रसर रहा है। तो राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति बल देती है कि हम फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी और ऑटोनॉमी के साथ आगे बढ़े। फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी, जैसे हम लोगों के समय में कभी बीमार पड़ गए, परीक्षा छूट गई, तो 1 साल बाद हम एग्जाम दे पाते थे। अब ये जरूरत नहीं, आप जब तक पढ़ना चाहें तब तक पढ़ें, जब एंट्री करना हो एंट्री करिए, जब एग्जिट करना हो तब एग्जिट कर दीजिए, परीक्षा छूट गई तो आगे दे लीजिए, आपका रजिस्ट्रेशन कैंसिल नहीं होगा और हर लेवल पर आपको सर्टिफिकेट मिल जाए। दूसरी जो महत्वपूर्ण बात है वह है स्किल डेवलपमेंट। पहले हम लोग जैसे बीए कर रहे हैं तो 3 विषय ले लिए, बी काम कर रहे हैं तो डेजिग्नेटेड पेपर्स थे, वही हम लोग पढ़ते थे। लेकिन आज चाहे आप बी काम करिए, बीए करिए, बीएससी करिए, along with your core papers you have to take several other papers also। स्किल एनहांसमेंट के कोर्सेज आपको करने हैं। स्वतंत्रता है कि आप अपने रीजनल लैंग्वेजेज में करिए। क्रेडिट बैंक हो गया, आप जितनी क्रेडिट अर्न करेंगे और जब एक्यूमुलेट हो जाएगा, रिक्वायर्ड क्रेडिट आप अचीव कर लोगे तो आपको डिग्री मिल जाएगी। अभी अर्लियर सेशंस के जो स्पीकर्स थे उन्होंने जोर दिया कि रिसर्च बेस्ड हमारी एजुकेशन। आपको पता होगा कि 3 साल तो हम लोग कोर्सेज करते हैं, जो 4th ईयर है दैट इज ऑनर्स कोर्स। बेसिकली दिस 4th ईयर इज फोकसिंग ऑन द रिसर्च, शोध पर, और वह शोध हम अपने आवश्यकताओं के अनुसार, अभी डॉक्टर सबरवाल साहब ने बहुत फोकस किया कम्युनिटी नीड्स, कम्युनिटी रिक्वायरमेंट्स के आधार पर हम शोध करें और शोध करके जो आउटकम लेंगे तो हमारी वह एजुकेशन प्रोडक्टिव होगी, कंस्ट्रक्टिव होगी, जीवन से जुड़ के हम आगे बढ़ेंगे। तो ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों के लिए बड़ा स्कोप है जो अपनी राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति प्रोवाइडेड। अब यहाँ थोड़ी दिक्कत जो आ रही है उस पर भी हम कमेंट करेंगे कि हमारे जो ग्रामीण कॉलेजेज में एक लिमिटेशन आ रही है कि मल्टी डिसिप्लिन फैकल्टी होनी चाहिए। जैसे बी काम का बच्चा है, वो संगीत पढ़ना चाहता है, ला पढ़ना चाहता है, तो वहाँ जब तक ला की फैकल्टी नहीं होगी तो नहीं पढ़ सकता। तो आज जो आपको एक ऑप्शन है कि एर्स्ट वाइल जो डिसिप्लिन है, दूसरी डिसिप्लिन है, उसमें जा कर के पढ़ें, तो सामान्यतया हो क्या रहा है कि कोई बीकॉम कर रहा है तो इकोनॉमिक्स में जा कर के पढ़ता है, तो कॉमर्स वाला तो इकोनॉमिक्स पढ़ता ही है, इससे फायदा नहीं हुआ। तो इन रियलिटी जिस दिन राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति हमारी इम्प्लीमेंट होगी ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में भी, तो हमारे बच्चों का फायदा होगा, ये लाभ होगा शहरी के साथ साथ ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में। और इस पर काम चल रहा है, सरकार विचार कर रही है, और हमें लगता है कि जब पूर्ण रूप से राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति लागू होगी तो हमारे ग्रामीण विद्यार्थियों को भी इससे भला होगा।
थैंक यू सर।
राधे राधे सर। सर मेरा क्वेश्चन है, विच इज़ द बेस्ट मेथड फॉर स्टडी थ्रू टेक्स्ट बुक और डिजिटल क्लासरूम्स?
वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन। ट्रेडिशनल क्लासरूम और डिजिटल क्लासरूम आज देश की आवश्यकता के अनुरूप हमें डिजिटल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन की ज़रूरत है। ये जो फर्स्ट आपका क्लास है इंटरनेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस का, एडवांसिंग हायर एजुकेशन, हम सबको तभी दे पाएंगे जब डिजिटल क्लासरूम उसको डेवलप करें। तो ये आवश्यकता है, लेकिन हमने शुरू में ही कहा कि जो आपका आई कांटेक्ट है, फेस टू फेस कांटेक्ट है, ये हमारे ट्रेडिशनल क्लासरूम में होता है। और जैसा मैं पुनः प्रोफेसर अखिलेश सिंह को कोट करता हूँ कि आज हमें अपने विद्यार्थियों को भी ऐसा तैयार होना चाहिए कि वो टीचर्स के लिए भी वो होमवर्क दे कि सर ये प्रश्न है, पूछना चाहिए। तो ट्रेडिशनल क्लासरूम में आप कर लेते हैं और जो डिजिटल क्लासरूम में है उसमें आप क्वेश्चन टाइप कर देते हैं। तो जो कनेक्टिविटी है, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है, यदि वो डेवलप हो जाता है तो हम दोनों माध्यमों से अपनी एजुकेशन पूरा कर सकते हैं। दोनों की अलग अलग लिमिटेशन है, अलग अलग प्रिविलेजेस हैं, अलग अलग एडवांटेजेस हैं। थैंक यू।
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir, for your thoughtful.
राधे राधे सर, मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि डिजिटल शिक्षा ग्रामीण शिक्षा छात्रों के लिए कैसे फायदेमंद हो रही है?
डिजिटल शिक्षा बहुत फायदेमंद है
सर कैसे?
क्योंकि ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में भी मोबाइल तो सबके हाथ में है, जो इक्विपमेंट है वो महत्वपूर्ण है। जो लिटरेचर आपको डिजिटली मिल जाता है, शायद उतनी किताबें आपको नहीं मिल पाएंगी। तो अच्छी अच्छी जो बुक्स हैं वो भी आज डिजिटल उपलब्ध हैं। तो पढ़ाई के लिए हमको लेक्चर्स चाहिए, कहीं के भी लेक्चर्स। जैसे वो तो लिमिटेशन है कि केवल आप एक टीचर का लेक्चर अपने ट्रेडिशनल क्लासरूम में सुन सकते हैं, लेकिन आप यदि सर्च करें तो जिस भी टॉपिक पर आपको लेक्चर सुनना है तो कहीं के भी प्रोफेसर का लेक्चर आप सुन सकते हैं। ये बहुत फ़ायदा डिजिटली है जो ट्रेडिशनल नहीं है, लेकिन आपको उसके लिए तैयार होना है। मटेरियल बहुत है और तमाम रबिश भी है, ये आपको उसमें खोजना है नीर क्षीर विवेक कि कौन सा बढ़िया लेक्चर है, टू दी पॉइंट है, इलाबोरेटिव है, आपके सिलेबस के हिसाब से है। यू हैव टू सर्च, क्योंकि जो डिजिटल लिटरेचर उपलब्ध है वो जनरलाइज्ड है। तो इसलिए आपको अपने समय, अपने कोर्स और अपनी ज़रूरत के हिसाब से यदि उसमें सर्च करें तो आपको फायदा उससे होगा। यही फायदा है उससे।
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your thoughtful questions and valuable interactions. Because of the time constraints, we will now conclude the session. I sincerely express our gratitude to Professor A.R. Tripathi, sir, for his enlightening plenary talk, for sharing his rich, knowledgeable experience with us. We are also thankful to Ms. Monika Joshi, ma'am, for her informative memorial lecture and her continued presence with us throughout the conference. With this, we come to the end of the session. Thank you, everyone, for your kind participation. Let us give a big round of applause to our esteemed guest. We will meet again tomorrow for day 2 of IC 2026, where we will engage in technical session featuring insightful lectures and presentations. Radhe Radhe, have a nice day. Radhe Radhe, keep note down. Tomorrow will be breakfast and registration is around 8 to 9 o'clock in the morning. Before leaving, I kindly request all the participants to please fill out feedback form. Your feedback is very valuable to us. Radhe Radhe.